is to have access to the internet. Then you go on the PSA feed for this, we want to call it the rescue relief, which is the food hampers, the hampers. All you have to do is to have access to the internet. Then you go on the PSA Facebook page. Then you will see a link. When you see that link on the Facebook page, that link will lead you to a form that you would be able to fill out online. We are here to ensure that we do our part in building a society on love, togetherness, and where we look for each other. That process by which the so we the PSA, we signed off for a 9%. It's about 1,500 different categories of jobs we represent. Process by which the UGO, so we the PSA, we signed off for a 9%. It's about 1,500 different categories of jobs we represent. This is ticket. All right. Yes, my people. This is live, and so today we'll be dealing with negotiations, and I have here with me the first vice president of the PSC. It's all real. Your name?
Good morning, Felisha Thomas. I'm the first vice president of the PSA.
All right. And it is our desire that we would be able to give you all the news that you have been asking for, all the news on negotiations. I mean, we have just about 20 negotiations, and we want to ensure that all is up and running. Let me just ensure that our sponsors are here and our sponsors are operating. Are we up and running live? Nice. Want to make sure you're running live, because think about live, that if you're not live, then you're not live. So we need to be sure we are live this morning. I'm having a little bit of trouble on my thing here, on my system here. Let me just make sure that we are up and running. Right, good. I think I'm sitting here good now. All right. So we have how many negotiations we have on the whole?
20. We have 20 in total.
20 negotiations. And for this morning, we want to just go through, maybe for half an hour, the 20 negotiations that we are currently doing And so if you are a member of the PSA and you belong to one of the bargaining units, you would hear the status of your negotiations. All right? We are going to tell you the status of our negotiations. It is the role of the first vice president to ensure that all collective agreements are submitted on time. All right? And so let's start one time.
Yeah.
Agricultural Development Bank. That's a very important area. They deal with agriculture. It's a bank. We are responsible for the employees there, the terms and the conditions. Give me an update.
Well, as of the 28th of September 2020,
Yeah.
the committee and myself, we would have sat together and went through an extensive update of the 2011 to 2013 proposal that
Yeah.
they had existing, and we had submitted for the period 14 to 16. That is on the table before management, but we have reached a stalemate where management has not met with the PSA to commence those negotiations, and we are now before the industrial court for failure to meet and treat on that particular negotiations, because what the management does not understand is that they have no option when it comes to meeting and
None.
treating with the PSA as the RMU. So once we submit to you, you have a duty to meet and treat with the association and go through these negotiations and bring it to a close. So we are now at the industrial court when it comes to the ADB, and we do expect a good outcome in that particular matter.
All right, that's one. We have 20 going through. Airport Authority. What's the latest on that?
Airport Authority, they too, we would have submitted on the 28th of September 2020. Management is now in the process of reviewing and costing that proposal to commence negotiations with the PSA.
Very good. Number 3, the Bureau of Standards. We represent, the PSA represent the Bureau of Standards. They are responsible, as you know, for ensuring that everything in this country has standards. Electrical standards, concrete construction standards, etc. Tire standards, tool standards, etc. So tell us about them.
Well, the Bureau, we were supposed to commence those negotiations last week, and I must commend the Bureau for taking a positive step, because this particular negotiation is one we had before the Ministry of Labour.
Yeah.
But management has taken the step to engage the PSA, and we are now about to commence negotiations. But due to COVID, the consultant who is conducting negotiations on behalf of the Bureau, he is in quarantine at this time. So we are just waiting for his quarantine period to come to an end, and we will commence those negotiations for the Bureau of Standards.
Okay, very
And
good.
I know the employees of the Bureau are looking forward to that.
Indeed, they are. So we are now to Shagamas Development Authority. That's the organization responsible for the entire, I should say, northwestern peninsula.
Yeah.
From this plant, I think is it deals with Alcoa.
Yes.
Alcoa,
Yeah.
from Alcoa plant, all the way back down to the army base. We are, our members are responsible for that. All the islands out there, Shaka Shakari, what the other islands are again? You know, there's so many islands, Nelson Island and Carrier, but all the other islands out there, they are responsible for them, and these are hard-working people, all right?
They are.
And so we also negotiate for these people. Give us an update.
They too, like Airport Authority and ADB, we would have submitted their proposal on the 28th of September. We have written to management to commence negotiations. We had a meeting with the HR manager and also the consultant in relation to their response, and they have committed to giving us some feedback on when they will be able to start those negotiations. So although we have not commenced, we are hopeful that those negotiations will commence very soon.
Okay. Now, on to the 5th one. We have 20 places we negotiate for, right? When I say the PSA, big, the PSA, large, the PSA, humongous. We, you know, trade unionists. When you talk about trade unionists, we are the cream, la creme, whatever they call it, cream of the crop. That's me. Now, the 5th one, Housing Development Authority. When it comes to government housing, it used to be the National Housing Association. but now it has transformed into the HTC and they provide a lot of government housing. So tell us about those persons. How is that negotiation going?
So for the HGC, we had our very first meeting with management in February, where we would have sat and discussed our expectations both for the management and the PSA and how we expect the negotiations to go to be conducted. And we were scheduled to commence these negotiations Monday. But Monday, the management of HGC, they did have a very hectic day in relation to the reopening of the offices. So they have asked the PSA to reschedule those negotiations. Also, within this week, I know the HR department had to shut down for about a week because of a COVID scare. So once they are back out, we will have a new date for that negotiations to commence. But in the interim, I have been meeting with the new management committee for the PSA on behalf of the AGC and just going through the proposal to ensure that there's nothing else we want to change within that proposal to put before management. So we are looking forward to commencing those negotiations very soon.
All right. So that was the sixth one. We're on to, that was the fifth one.
Yeah.
We are on to the seventh one. No, so the sixth one.
Yeah.
Wow. So we did Agriculture Development Bank, we did Airports Authority, we did the Bureau of Standards, Shagamas Development Authority, Housing Development Authority, and now we're going to do the Metal Industries Company Limited.
Yes.
Tell us about those people. By the way, if those people don't know, they are a training organization. It's like a school that teaches persons certain special discipline. The journeyman, welding, craftsman, PLC, how to wire pump, rewind a pump, things like that. It's a very excellent place for learning. But tell us about the employees and the terms and the conditions and salary. How is that going?
Those have not commenced as yet. Either management is in the process of costing that proposal as well. And we are expecting to commence those negotiations soon. We really went through a process with the committee and we submitted a good proposal. We had a mass membership meeting with the employees of MIC to get their feedback on what the association has put forward on their behalf. We got some good feedback from the membership and we're looking forward to commencing those negotiations.
That was number 6. Number 7, NALIS. Now we represent the workers at NALIS. NALIS has moved from the National Library. That's what NALIS means. I'm fancy something, you know what I mean? We can never get the acronyms of these things right because the government are changing the names of these organizations faster than mothers are changing diapers for babies. One day it's Ministry of Social Development, next day it's Ministry of the People. They keep changing these things quickly. So we represent the NALIS workers in Trinidad and Tobago, and we are doing pretty well in negotiations. Let's see how that negotiation is going.
Well, this one is a very exciting one because this is actually the first negotiations we are having for NALIS since we got recognition for those workers. We had our very first meeting with management on the 12th of February 2021, and they are now in the process of having discussions with their board so that they can get directives to move forward with negotiations. We were supposed to start based on the timelines they provided. We were supposed to start in June, but NALIS was closed due to COVID. They are back out now, and we are about to engage management to come up with a date that we could commence these negotiations. But a proposal is on the table. Management is looking at the proposal, and we expect to start soon.
All right, so on to number 8, NAMDEVCO. NAMDEVCO, we have in the east, we have in the south. NAMDEVCO deals with buying produce from farmers wholesale, and they have a wholesale market. So once you're selling things, they come there and people buy from you, etc., etc. That's NAMDEVCO.
Yes.
Tell us about NAMDEVCO. We represent the workers here. How is the negotiations they're going for these workers?
So with NAMDEVCO, we are at the stage of building their proposal. And what we as the PSA have done is engaged a process that allows organizations to learn from other organizations. So we basically build these proposals in somewhat of a training environment, so that when you build your proposal, one, you are intimate with it, you understand why you are putting certain things within your collective agreement, and you understand how to utilize it when representing your members. So we have engaged that process with NAMDEVCO, as well as a few others. As we go along, I will identify those to bring them together to build their proposal and submit to management. So we are now at the stage of building their proposal for submission.
All right. NIB, National Insurance Board. Tell us about that.
Well,
by the way, they represent all the social fabric of our society. They like the social blanket. NIS pension, that's for those persons who have never really held a job down, but they are now 65 years and older. They get a government pension called old age grant.
NIS grant.
Right? But it's not an NIS grant really. Alright? Sometimes persons make contribution. They make a contribution. How much contribution it is?
I think right now the contributions may be somewhere around 100 and something, depending on your salary.
You know what it is, right? We spend so much time crunching the figures, trying to get workers their terms and conditions. We sometimes forget what the law says about etc. etc. So we deal with these workers. It's about 600 workers they're about to represent. All of them. So we'll have you give us an update on the negotiations. Yeah.
Well, I guess the nation should be aware of NIB negotiations because it has been the topic of discussion within our media. The NIB negotiations were settled, signed off, agreed between management and the association, and we now have that agreement registered at the industrial court. But for some reason, they have failed to pay the workers what was agreed to, and that is now a matter before the industrial court. That was supposed to be heard in August, but I am aware that the consultant would have asked, the consultant on behalf of the NIB would have asked for an extension from the court as a result of being tied up in other matters. So we are waiting the outcome of that matter. But that still does not stop the PSA. We are moving forward with putting together our proposal for the next period. So that will be on the table soon for the NIB workers, even in the event of this matter being before the industrial court.
Now, NIHERS. NIHERS is a place that it's almost like an education institute.
Yeah.
All right. You could study at NIHERS. They have a science complex, I would say.
Yes.
That's somewhere in the east of there. NIHERS is quite an area responsible for education in this nation. We, the PSA, represent the workers there at NIHERS. Give us an update on their negotiations.
Yes. So NIHERS is one of the places where I feel like they're playing a little bit of games with the workers, because we have submitted this proposal. We would have made contact with management where they would have asked us for a soft copy to assist them with costing it, looking at it, reviewing it, so that they can come to the table. Our last meeting, which was conducted by our second vice president with the committee there and management, our second vice president did raise the topic of negotiations, and management is pretending as though they have not received our proposal. But because we were able to put forward email communication with management as proof that they have asked, we have submitted it to them. They are now in the process of setting up and arranging dates for us to commence those negotiations as well. So that was some good work on behalf of our second vice president.
I think we have to commend them.
Yes.
Commendable indeed, commendable indeed. Let's now look at NIPDEC. That's the 11th place we're looking at. NIPDEC. Yeah.
NIPDEC, we are well on our way with those negotiations. We are now at the point of coming to an agreement on percentages. Right now, before the management has proposed or somehow think that it is a fair position to come around the table and say that I'm willing to give this increase, but I'm not willing to pay no retroactive on that. And that position, the PSA felt it's unacceptable. It's a position that no employer should come to the table with. And we have asked the management of NIPDEC to go back, retain their position, and then come back to the PSA, because that position could only be a position of a thief. And I don't think the management of NIPDEC are thieves. So
Precisely.
come back with a better position, and that's what we're waiting. Yeah.
NIPDEC, for those who don't know, NIPDEC is like what we will call the first version of that urban development. Again, UDCOT.
UDCOT, yeah.
NIPDEC is the version of UDCOT.
Yes.
But then they find NIPDEC is bogged down by these unions and these legislation. So they try to create their own parallel thing called UDCOT. But NIPDEC is responsible for issuing government contracts and supervising the buildings that are being built on behalf of the government. That's the role of NIPDEC. We represent the workers here also. Number 12, Princess Elizabeth Home. That's one of the home that should we say, a benefit that got the name Princess Elizabeth Home. It's one of the home where they do surgery for persons who may have certain illnesses. So tell us some more about the negotiations here.
Yeah. So I want to take this opportunity to group Princess Elizabeth and PTSC.
Yeah.
Because those two are areas, and allow me to group some that we're moving forward with.
Right.
I'm going to group Princess Elizabeth, PTSD, Queen's Hall,
Yeah.
Blind Welfare, because those are the groups of workers that we are bringing together to build their proposal along with NAMDEFCO. As I said, that the PSA has taken an approach as using this process of putting together a collective agreement as a learning process for the representatives within the workplace. So it gives them the opportunity to understand why you put what you put into a collective agreement, as well as understand how to utilize it when representing workers. And it gives the opportunity for organizations to learn from organizations.
Definitely.
When you bring them together in that manner. So those are the ones that we're bringing together next, and we do expect to complete their proposals by the end of September of this year and have those submitted to management.
So we have done 12, 13, 14, 15. So we have a few more to do, right? So we have WASTA.
Yes.
It's about WASTA, that's a big one, you know, WASTA. And let me say this, we have some things to drop on Monday coming, yeah? Monday coming will be a different type of show. Right? I have an old blue shirt with some, I don't know if I'm going to wash it, and if I'm going to wash it for you. But go ahead.
Yes.
Tell me WASTA.
We know what's happening right now in WASA, and I wouldn't dive too much into WASA negotiations. WASA negotiations did commence. We were talking non-cost, but we are at the point now where it's a whole different ball game in WASA.
But survivability.
So, yes. So negotiations, yes, it's still on the table, but focus has been shifted just slightly, not totally off of the negotiations because it's still on the table, but shifted just a little bit to focus on the protection of the workers in WASA.
All right, so we're counting down. We're on the betting levy board.
Yes.
Betting levy board is parallel, but it works in tandem with the racing authority. But more than that, any type of racing, any type of betting the government has that taking place in this country falls under the betting levy board.
Yes.
I mean, we don't have them foul fight again. We do have dog race and thing here. But should we have dog race and cock fight and these things? The betting levy board will be the one to levy. It's a very important group. They look at horse racing now and the other type of sport. So let's see about them. We represent the workers there.
Yes. So in 2019, we would have settled negotiations for the employees of the betting levy board. And we are now at the point where we are going to review a new proposal for submission to the management. The committee there would have completed a proposal. We are going to discuss it, review it, and see what's applicable, what's not, how we could improve it before we submit to management for the next period.
Lovely. Racing authority. That's the authority that deals with principally horse racing.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Racing authority, their proposal is on the table. We commence negotiations with management, but unfortunately, within that period of discussion, there was a fire at the racing authority, which is also the building that houses the bet and levy board. There were some challenges faced there, but we are still on top of it with management to come to a reasonable date to commence those negotiations. Once they have settled in, we will approach them again and we will commence those negotiations. But our proposal is on the table and we have commenced those discussions.
I like that. Very much on top of the game. Finally, we want to look at the Civil Services Association.
Civil service.
Yeah, negotiation. And I will take that one from you. I will just say that our proposals are in. We have begun negotiations. We have had some settlements on allowances. On I'm going to say settlements, I speak tongue in cheek because we have not signed off on them, but we have had agreements around the table on allowances, on things like meal allowance, number stuff like that. Even on salaries to an extent, we have had some agreements. However, when the pandemic struck last year, around March, it dealt a blow to everything that was on the table. And so we have nothing signed off. We are still hoping to continue some discussions with the Minister of Labor, Minister of Finance. He has his own ideas as to what workers should not have in this country and what they should enjoy. But we will deal with that. So I want us to go for a break. And when we go for a break, we'll come back with the counter side of these negotiations. So everything is ongoing. Everything is ongoing. Nothing is forthcoming so far. Settlement. When we settled, we got nothing. I was an NIB. But when we come back, we're going to tell you some of our other moves. All right? Let's go for a break. For this, all you have to do is to have access to the internet. Then you go on the PSA Facebook page. Then you will see a link. When you see that link on the Facebook page, that link will lead you to a form that you would be able to fill out online. We are here to ensure that we do our part in building a society on love, togetherness, and where we look out for each other. That process by which we the PSA, we signed off for a 9%. It's about 1,500 different kinds of jobs we represent. For this, we want to call it the rescue relief, which is the food hampers, all you have to do is to have access to the internet. Then you go on the PSA Facebook page. Then you will see a link. When you see that link on the Facebook page, that link will lead you to a form that you would be able to fill out online. We are here to ensure that we do our part in building a society on love, togetherness, and where we look out for each other. welcome back to PSA and we're talking negotiations. You know, every time when we bring these negotiations up and we are talking to the government, first VP, it's always a situation where the government is saying to these employers that we can't afford that. Look at the state of the economy. The government say that they are not involved in negotiations, but the government gives the organization the remit, gives them the limit to which they can, or they always say, the limits, the outer limit and the inner limits for the negotiations. All right? And most time the inner limits start at 0, which means we can't afford anything.
Yes.
And then they go up to a maximum limit. Now, if we were to approach negotiations differently by the government saying to the PSA, look, this is the money we can afford. We can afford $10 million and tell us how you think you want to use this money. Then there'll be open negotiations. Or if we were to use what we call the purchasing power of workers to ensure that workers do not suffer unnecessarily from inflation and the general market forces, it would mean to us that we will know exactly where we need to get in order to ensure workers continue buying the same basket of goods and living basically a life that is stress-free, meaning they're maintaining a basic standard of living. But the government does not do that. You have encountered many negotiations, many persons. You are now a professional, I will say. And you always hear the government saying we can't afford that. What do you think? Do you think a time will come when they will say we could afford what you're asking for? Will there ever be a time when the government will be able to afford the cost of labor?
You know what? I think history has answered that question for us. We have seen from time to time. And that is why when persons ask about the relevance of trade unions in this time, my answer will always be there will always be a need for trade unions, because from time till now, we have always have to fight for what we have.
Indeed.
There has never been a time when the employer has looked at the worker and say, you know what, you are deserving of this, and they have given it to you. They know that you are deserving of it,
of course,
but yet still they want you to fight and bear to get it. And that is what the trade union movement is about, to improving the lives of workers, because we know that your employer is not going to do it for you.
Exactly. You know, of course, Vice President, we have had to deal with the bulk of government workers. Approximately 90% of the government workers fall under the PSA. And we have discovered that they are cutting workers' allowances, saying to them, we can't afford this allowance. So here what? Is either take a cut in allowance or suffer job loss. What you want? Real gangster workers. Eh? And they are not even coming to the PSA. Sometimes they are meeting the workers in the corridor.
Yeah.
And gangster them saying to them, hey, tell the union that we either cut allowances or we send workers home. What I want. It's like when I was small, we would play a game, your money or your life, right? Choose your money or your life. Call it gun shooting. Click. Your money or your life, what you want. Because you expect the person to choose the thing that is most important to him.
Yes.
To choose the thing that can be replaced.
Yes.
When you offer workers the opportunity between employment or an increase in salary or an allowance, workers will always choose employment, because you cannot replace employment easily. That is unfair. Vice President, it is unfair when one look at the type of salaries and allowances these ministers are getting, and there seem to be no end in sight to the vulgar allowances and the exploitation by these ministers, the exploitation of those benefits that they are entitled to.
Absolutely.
Tell us, you are quite abreast of the news. And I think there's an uproar in the public domain right now over some ministers purchasing luxury vehicles. They are ordinary vehicles and are luxury vehicles. If you ask the finance minister, he was quite clear that small man must not drive luxury vehicles. Yes. He made it absolutely plain in his first budget. Absolutely plain in his first. I say, CPO, I am on a Facebook Live and you're calling me. So tell me, what's going on with negotiations? We what on negotiations online here? Or just always commenting on live? What going on with negotiations? Alright, okay. Alright. That is the CPO. They're always calling me when I'm alive. You're always calling me when I'm alive. And they know you're alive. So even though I'm alive, what you calling me for? The same thing we're saying. Yeah? So, as if they want to throw you off the toes. Yeah. The idea is that they are cutting workers' allowances, cut out overtime, cut out car park allowance, cut out this allowance, cut out meal allowance, cut out this, cut out that. But the ministers who are enjoying certain tax exemptions, motor vehicle tax, water heater tax, amounting to a large sum of money, that is not cut out. When you hear the Prime Minister speaks, you see they're entitled to that, and rightfully so. But it cannot be good for one and not the other.
Absolutely.
I have a document here on my Facebook page, and I'm going to say from some TT Underground Facebook thing, and they're saying here that column Imbert, right, between 2015 and 2019 had a tax exemption of over $900,000. I'm seeing on my Facebook post that I want to read it here. Someone is giving a comment. Someone gave a comment actually on the live where they were actually saying that, you know what, boy, in my life I only had 3 cars and the total cost of those 3 cars was $60,000. Someone made a comment here on my live. They say, in my life I had 3 cars. And you know the first car I owned in my life? The first car I owned in my life, I was 19 years old.
Right.
18 years old. 18 years old. The first car I owned. My brother went to the bank and he signed for me. I couldn't afford that car. Right? He co-signed for me as a guarantor. Meaning if I fail to pay, he will pay.
Yeah.
You know what the cost of the car was? $1,500. $1,500 I got for the car. The car was an Avenger. An old model car. So there are people out here who are grappling with other important issues. Issues of life and death. Whether to pay this medical bill or not to pay this medical bill. How does the government appease these workers to know that there's no salary negotiations from how long now?
Since 2013.
And some cases are 2010, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So now, that's about 8 to 10, 9 years. And there's nothing at all. Do you think that we can be optimistic? Now we recognize there is some money for some indiscretionate spending by the government. Do you think that there will be some money for the workers to engage in some indiscretionate spending, like buy a dress, buy a shoes, you know, perhaps some kind of a new seats for the car or something like that?
Absolutely not. This government has made it quite clear the way they feel about workers and their entitlements. They make it seem as though you are almost evil and wicked to ask the government or demand that they give you what is right for you.
That's not true. That is not true. They make you feel guilty if you say to them, we want more money.
Yes.
You say, you did more work, all are lazy. What's going with that? Right now we should be firing you all enough because we can't pay you. You're doing nothing on the job. So how do we settle with it? What do you suggest, Vice President?
You see, it is going to have to come to a day when the workers will have to say enough is enough. Because that causes them to respond They have no respect for workers. They don't know what these workers go through on a daily basis to get their jobs done. Even when they, as the management, as the government, has failed to provide the tools that these workers need to do their jobs on a daily basis. But yet still, you come to tell these workers that they are lazy. You have no right.
None right whatsoever. But why do they do it in the first place? Why do they do it, and why it seems as if the government can do whatever they want and escape in this society? How could that possibly happen?
The government has used their office. One, they made the workers feel guilty. And almost when you feel that guilt is almost like, let me don't say nothing now, I will lose my job. Because there's a fear. But what they have also done is they have introduced contract work as a way to shut up civil servants and their permanent jobs, to threaten permanent workers. Because here what happens in the workplace, when they have introduced that contract work, they depend on the contract workers. When the permanent workers stand up for their rights, the contract workers sit down and they do the work. You know why? Because you're not sure if next month they will renew your contract if you stand up for your rights. So they will put you in a burden building to work, and you will think twice if to come out of that building just to get your contract renewed. That is evil that workers in this day and age have to deal with just to feed their families.
I tell you, we in the PSA are committed to fighting for workers. We are committed to marching. We are committed to placarding. We are committed to logical and economical arguments. We are committed because we have done it already. I want to say to you that we are going to publish show here because we want to leave you with the fact that we are representing you, and it's far from over. We have only highlighted the fact that these ministers are looking after themselves, and they want everything that belongs to them, they are doing it. We heard Stuart Young in response to Dr. Rudal Munilal's question as to why are they engaging in this type of spending on luxury vehicles, some 500,000 off. He says the first time in 6 years I'm making use of this, I'm entitled to it. So they have a sense of entitlement, a sense of nobody can tell me anything. But you, the worker, who are entitled to a job in this country under the social contract, under social justice, they are saying to you, you're not entitled to that. Be very thankful that I am giving you a job. We will change that mindset. And I'm saying to you, let them lift the COVID standard and they will know which part Bali does go. Let them lift the COVID restriction and they will know how cold Siberia is. This is Watson Duke, President, and Felisha Thomas, First Vice President of the PSA. We are saying goodbye, and that's it for now. But join me on Monday, 10 o'clock. And I tell you what, I have a lot to say about why Seeley resigned. I have a lot to say about that. We will play some tape recordings. We will produce some documents. And I'm going to tell you this, it's not going to be easy. Prepare for political war in the PSA on Monday, 10 a.m. sharp. That's a date we have together. Thank you very much. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. For this, I'm going to call it the rescue relief, which is the food hampers. All you have to do is to have access to the internet. Then you go on the PSA Facebook page. Then you will see a link. When you see that link on the Facebook page, that link will lead you to a form that you would be able to fill out online. We are here to ensure that we do our part in building a society on love, togetherness, and where we look out for each other. process by which you go, so we the PSA, we signed off for a 9%. It's about 1,500 different categories of jobs we represent.